it's Kimoni here. Welcome back to my channel. Glad to have you here, and today we are going to be discussing webtoons. Now, if you've been here a while, you know that I love reading. I love all kinds of reading, from fiction to non-fiction to comics, such as webtoons. And I really wanted to take the time today to discuss five that I absolutely love and I feel like don't get enough recognition because they have amazing stories and I think you guys would really enjoy them. So that being said, I hope you enjoy the video. First story on the list is The Revelation of Errors. Now, this is an amazing story. It follows the main character Eros, who in the background of college in the US, and he's currently working through a lot of trauma, working through a lot of emotions, working through a lot of learnt behavior, which he's picked up through his traumatic experiences. And he's dealing with, and the story deals with themes such as, loss, grief, trauma, bullying, not just through errors but through the range of different characters in the cast. The main three other characters, not three actually, four other characters who are involved with errors the most are Galen, Emmett, Tori, and Naylor. And they all have their own like individual stories. They all have their individual life story to be telling. And what makes this really compelling is that the revelation of errors is also based on true stories, which makes it even more like, I don't know, it makes it even more emotional to see these characters develop. You see Errors develop over time. You see his mental health improve. You see self-acceptance. You see that he's loving people more and he's opening up to other people way more. And you can see him overall just becoming a healthier person over time through the many experiences he has and by building relationships with others in his college. And so I would definitely recommend Revelation of Errors if you're into really like in-depth character development, if you're into friendships, if you're into just reading heartfelt stories that explores really difficult themes such as trauma, the LGBTQ plus community, immigration issues, then I feel like Revelation of Errors is really for you because it deals with those stories in a very respectful and also just like compelling and truthful way. Next up on the list is The Fox Club. Now, The Fox Club is such a unique story. I think it really puts a twist on the typical, high school, girl group sort of stories that you typically see in the mainstream. So it focuses on these two characters, Chera and Onyu, and they have been best friends that joined at the hip. They're very, very close, and through interesting turns of events they end up joining the Fox Club, which is the school's most popular club, full of the most popular girls in the school. The leader, Ilma, is currently training to become an idol, and she often clashes with Chera, which causes a lot of friction within the group. Revelations are made, there's character development as a result of it, and you get to see all of these girls interact with each other. You see their worst sides, but you also see some of their best sides, and it's really interesting to see how their dynamic shifts over time. What started off as just like a sort of mini alliance, something that was done in order to sustain their image, is now going deeper and deeper and deeper as feelings of jealousy, feelings of tiredness, feelings of just resentment towards each other sort of rises and bubbles over the edge. I will say, so whilst the friendship group is can be a bit catty, I will say the relationships in the story are very heartwarming, are very heartfelt, especially the relationship that Onyu has in the story. I won't say who it's with, but let me just tell you guys are gonna love it. They are the cutest couple that I've read in a manhwa in a while, to be honest, in a webtoon in a while. So I would definitely recommend The Fox Club if you're into stories surrounding in a school setting, stories that are focused on like, individual characters and their own development, seeing multiple perspectives, just your typical teenage story, but like with a lot more depth added to it. School Bus Graveyard is also an amazing webtoon. It follows the story of this group of friends. Well, I would call them friends now, but in the beginning they're not friends. Essentially, we're introduced to the main character, who is Ashton, who is your typical loner, likes to be alone, prefers to keep to herself, and through a series of events, mainly on the school trip, she ends up trapped in a sort of alternate universe with some of her classmates. And essentially, this alternate universe is extremely scary. It's a world full of phantoms that tries to kill them whilst they're in that alternate world, whilst in the real world they're sleeping. And so I really love this webtoon because, one, for the world building, you start to see different aspects of the world, how the world works through reading the story, and you start to figure out different things. It's also the fact that you can never really predict what's going to happen. So like I feel like the story in that way is very dynamic. Like I said before, even though there's a lot of world building and there's a lot of like developing the background in which the story is placed in, there are times where you actually don't know what's going on. Things will happen and the characters don't have an explanation for it, because they themselves are also trying to figure out the world which they're trying to navigate. Plus, I really love the fact that this sort of like alternate universe isn't just like, well, I guess you could say it's more like supernatural, but like they combine the supernatural with like real world politics, which I think it's a really good twist on the drama, because a lot of the time it's either something is very supernatural and completely remote from this world, or it's something like more like in this world, more realistic. And in this story, they combine both sides. So you have the alternate paranamic universe, which they've been placed in by accident, and then you have the other side where you've got this organization who is trying to track them down and get information out of them and test on them, because they want to figure out more about the alternate universe. Or that's what we know of, that's what we presume. We don't actually know what their objectives are, what they really want, etc. But like the story's still ongoing. We're still learning more about what's happening. The series went on hiatus recently on a really big cliffhanger, so I'm aching to read more. But I would definitely recommend, whilst it's on hiatus, binge read it, because it's really, really good. Fourthly, we have like Mother Like Daughter, which follows the narrative of Som, who is trying to escape her mother, who killed her brother. And essentially, Som doesn't know, she doesn't know how to escape. Essentially, her mother killed her brother, she got away with it, and now Som is traumatized. Essentially, she's completely scared of her mother and is trying to escape from her grasp. And when we're introduced to the story, she feels like her best option to be able to escape her mother is to just go to the best school in her district that is also a boarding school, so she becomes out of her mother's sight. And so that is her main inclination throughout her education, until she meets another girl in her school. I can't actually remember the name of this character, but as she starts to build this relationship with her, things start to turn south. We get to see the same toxic behavior which her mother exhibits to that friend, to her brother, and Sam now goes on this desperate path in order to try and save her friend. And that's how the story starts off. That's the first plot of the story. And I find the story really interesting because, for one, it explores this really tense, toxic relationship that Som has with her mother. And then we also see how, like, her mother, despite the fact that Som hates her, how Som's mother sort of rubs off on her, if that makes sense. You start to see like little inklings of behavior where you're just like, that sounds like the mother, that looks like the mother. I can see you mirroring your mother a bit, and that can be really scary to watch as you see her go like further and further and further into her own little, like, I wouldn't say she's insane yet, but actually I would, kind of, because it's just really difficult to see her decline in her mental health as she becomes more and more and more paranoid and more scared of her surroundings, and she starts to attach to the wrong things. And so I would totally recommend like Mother Like Daughter if you're really interested in sort of like exploring that really like relationships, and you're excited to see characters who, it's not just a basic like escape my mother sort of story. It's a very like in-depth complex story and about a girl's mental health, and how her constantly trying to run away from her mother and trying to save her friend is deteriorating her mental state. And then the last story that we have is Sisters at War. Now, what is this about? So this story follows Hera, who is the main character, and her rival Leon, who are competing to be Milan One's masterpiece. Now, what does that mean? It's essentially being a sort of like the pinnacle of basically art is what she's seeing. Like Milan One is obsessed with creating a masterpiece because of the very toxic behaviors that her father exhibited towards her, and she's obsessed with creating something that's truly hers, that no one can take away from her. That's perfect. That is the pinnacle of what someone who is in art can be. And Hera and Leon are competing for that spot. Leon has been trained by Milan One since she was a child. She was adopted by her, and she has been raised as her daughter. Whereas Hera, she has grown up in a very like low, from a low income background, a very disadvantaged background, but she has developed her art through like skill and training all on her own, and she has become very talented in her craft. And that's what eventually gets Milan One's attention, and she essentially says that you know what, Hera, you are shaping to be my masterpiece. I feel like you could be my masterpiece. Or at least that's what she implies. She actually says in the beginning that you are my daughter, which is explored more in depth later in the story. There's a huge twist at the end, which I find that is really, really interesting. And the series has almost reached its conclusion. I think it's got less than 10 chapters to go. So definitely go ahead and read it if you're the type of person who lacks patience like I do and just wants to be able to finish a series quick. It's a brilliant story. You get to see the relationship between Leon and Hera, but you also see the relationship between Hera and Milan One, and Leon and Milan One. And you see how Milan One's obsession with creating a masterpiece, with creating something perfect, is actually damaging her daughter's mental health, especially Leon's. So really good read, definitely would recommend. And those are my top 5 webtoons that I would recommend. I hope you guys go and try it. If you have any other like webtoon recommendations, or if you read any of my recommendations, please leave your thoughts in the comments. I really hope you enjoyed this sort of spoiler-free short summary of all the stories that I listed in this video. Go check them out. They're all free to read on Webtoons. You don't have to pay to read them, and I think you'll really enjoy them. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.